Ablaze was written by Notas, and there's not a whole lot of program notes here. So I did a little bit of digging on the internet where I could find some information. And it turns out that Notas taught instrumental music in the New Jersey area for a number of years. And he co-authored one of these sound innovation series, which is part of the publishing group that through Alfred that did Ablaze. He published, I think, at least 3 volumes of sound innovation for concert band. I think he co-authored those. And I don't know him personally, but from what I've been told, he's just a really fun, high-energy teacher, and I can see a lot of that personality here in Ablaze. Because Ablaze has a lot of intense rhythms, and it incorporates passing tones that happen for long periods of the measure, which builds a lot of tension and anticipation, which is part of the reason that makes this piece so fun to play. It says that this piece correlates with Sound Innovations for String Orchestras, Book 2, Level 2, and I've looked through some of these. I've never taught out of them, but they're pretty good. I think Bob Phillips was one of the co-authors on those, and he's a solid teacher. If you're going to do that, I would recommend, and this pretty much goes for every method book, you don't have to play every single line with them. Just pick a few per section, pick the ones that you think are important and get good at those, and then move on. But the cool thing about Sound Innovations is that they're all pre-programmed into smart music. And during the quarantine, I took full advantage of smart music, especially through the Sound Innovations stuff, because I was so busy. I honestly did not have time to program everything in through MuseScore or whatever. I really relied on the stuff that was already there. And so Ablaze is completely programmed into smart music. You don't have to do a thing. You just load it up and it's ready to go, which is really convenient. You can put it up on the smart board or overhead projector in class. The students can work on it at home, and it works out pretty well. If students are virtual learning, then there are some features that let them know what's going well and what's not going so well. And I think for this piece of music, it's going to really help for the students to learn the rhythms, and it'll probably give them an idea about how to play in tune as well. However, if your students don't have solid fundamentals that you teach them, they're not going to be able to play a lot of these rhythms or play these notes in tune, no matter how hard they try, or no matter what sort of accountability system is built in the software, because either they're on the wrong part of the bow, or they don't have good hand shape, or something's going wrong to where they're just not going to be able to get it. Now, this piece is labeled through Alfred as a grade level 2.5. On the Texas PML, they round down. It's a grade 2. I'm not sure exactly. It says correlates with Sound Innovations. I'm not really sure how it correlates. I know on page 20, there's a section on E minor, and then later in the book, and this is one of the only series that has a lot of these stylized bowings in there. It has some stuff on, I think, around page 32, 33 in the student book, if I remember right, where there's some bowings that appear here and this piece of music too. If you're gonna program this piece, you're gonna have to have a strong orchestra, because there's a lot of stuff in here. And although it's not a grade 3, because only the basses shift into third position, I don't think there's really anything else that absolutely has to be played in third position anywhere else or any other position. But there are a lot of elements that actually exceed what a grade 3 would be on sort of that rubric of where we decide the difficulty of literature. The challenges aren't in the range of the piece or the ability to shift and stuff. The challenges lie elsewhere, and it's some of the challenges that are generally overlooked So I wouldn't recommend this with a weak orchestra. Definitely not a beginning orchestra. That probably would not go very well. More advanced orchestra, more of your varsity middle schools, I think this would be a winner for. Maybe if you had a really strong non-varsity group. Would a high school group respond to this piece? That kind of depends on the group. If it was mostly freshmen, they could probably dig it and get into this. Otherwise, there's other literature out there for them that's for a little older kids that may not be as advanced. You're going to have students that can play strong. In fact, every section in the orchestra is going to have to be a strong section because it's so independent. If you don't have a good viola section, for instance, it's really not going to go well. If you don't have a good second violin section, they're going to be exposed in a lot of places. If your basses can't play strong and melodically, it's going to sound awkward in some spots in here. So you have to have strong players that can really grip the string and put some weight down on the instrument. You're also going to need students that are pretty solid with rhythm and tempo. There's a lot of places in here, and most of them are because of the bowings, and I'll give you some tips and tricks on how to make those easier. They're still going to be a little hard, but how to make them a little easier. But I mean, if you go to the publisher site or if you go to any of the sheet music vendors, you'll hear recording of the studio orchestra playing this, and even they slow down a bit at 14 and rush right here in places like 26. And it's not super obvious, and it's just because of the way the bow falls. It's really easy to go to your natural tendencies of the bow in those places. So you got to be aware of that, and you got to correct, and you got to use good bow distribution or relift or develop some sort of strategy so that doesn't happen. Now, it's not bad, but it's definitely there. If you listen to it, you can definitely hear some speeding up and slowing down throughout. Now, that's with the studio orchestra, okay? Imagine this with 12-year-olds. You're going to have a group that can really hold down the beat. The two most important things to nail down right off the bat is going to be tone development, and it's going to be bow control. If we can get those two things happening fairly quickly, we can start working on the rest of it a lot easier. But if the students can't play strong with good tone, and if students can't stay with a beat and play some of these rhythms the way they're written, it's probably not the piece for your group. So hopefully with my next couple of videos on tone and bowings, that'll give you some teaching strategies on how to make that easier so that you can have a successful performance of this piece. We'll see you in the next video.